This is tape number 3 in our series on Jeet Kune Do scientific street fighting. My name is Jerry Beasley. I'll be your instructor. In this tape, we're going to look at HIA, hand immobilization attack. How do you stop the opponent in close? We're looking toe-to-toe this time. Most of the stand-up arts work at a distance. We want to be some distance away to kick, to punch. But what happens when you're confronted by an individual who's standing right in your face? This is trapping range. There are certain techniques that we have to pick up, certain weapons that we want to perfect as we develop expertise in HIA range, hand immobilization attack. For most of us in the stand-up arts, if we're at a long range here, we feel very comfortable. This gives us the distance in which we're ready to throw our normal long-range attacks, either through punching or kicking. But what happens when the opponent is up here in your face? That's what we have to be concerned about in this particular section. There are different weapons that we're going to use. For example, we might use the elbow, we might use the knee, we might use the headbutt, we might use different types of pinching or striking techniques, hair pulling, stomping techniques, anything that works in close that you typically couldn't use at a distance. At this distance, you wouldn't attempt to throw an elbow or a knee type of a strike. At this distance, you probably wouldn't try a stomping technique. But in close, when your kicking is too far away, that's when you need to use these close-in type of techniques for you. And so in this tape, what we're going to do is break down each individual technique and show you how it's applied. Let's look at the elbow for the first technique. Now, we want to hit with the hard part of the elbow here. In the typical karate, taekwondo type of art, the fist is tight, and we hit and we pull back. That's that kind of energy. Now, we don't have that energy so much here in the Junfan kickboxing. What we're trying to do is more of the Thai boxing type of elbow. Now, if you're practicing Jeet Kune Do, it may be in your matrix that we talked about in the last tape that you've used some Thai boxing. But once you put it into your individual expression in Jeet Kune Do, forget that it's Thai boxing. That's a word that has the limitations of the art that you used to service. Now you're JKD. That's beyond any specific art. So now my elbow is simply what works for me. And in this case, it may resemble an art, but it has nothing to do with that art. So here we go. The elbow comes across like this. We're nice and relaxed as we throw it. The forward hand, the forward part of the hand here is just relaxed. We just shoot it across. It's the same as we throw our right cross, just like that, except we're hitting with the elbow, hitting with the elbow. Now remember that in the right cross in tape number 1, it was important to keep your elbow in and down. And now we're going to throw this elbow technique by putting the elbow up. You want to make sure that you're not throwing your right cross with your elbow up, but rather you're throwing your cross down and the elbow up. And at this point, we're looking solely at the elbow, but I wanted to make sure that you understood the difference in the two. The same mechanics relate to the shoulder coming in and the hip coming in, and that's when you can drive some power. And once again, when we were looking at those fundamental techniques, we found that we could step forward with the body, we could torque and drop the body weight down, and that's what we're going to do with this elbow. So to get our power, we take this elbow stepping out and twisting and down, out and twisting and down, out and twisting and down. And you can see that the shoulder's going into it. You can see that the hip's going into it. You can see that the body weight is dropping to give you that power, just like that, just like that. Now I'm letting my hand just hit, just for the effect, but I'm just hitting out like this and back, out like that and back. Now this first technique is just going straight across with my elbow in that manner. This time, let's look at the elbow technique against the focus pad. Ian, if you'll bring the focus pad in, I'll put it up here, and you take a left lead. And we're just going to try this. First of all, let's see how a karate practitioner would typically throw it, making a hard fist and a cross and back. Now, you can see you get maximum power. Okay, and you see how the body weight is coming in, and the knees are being dropped here, and the arm is locking out. Okay, now the problem with that is you don't have a follow-up technique. Remember that in a lot of the stand-up arts, the karate, the taekwondo, what we're really doing is throwing the technique and that's it. It's one shot and the fight should be over. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work like that. So what we've done here is we've tightened the technique up so we get more of a snap. Hit it. And he's kind of reaching that time. Hit. And then pull back. Okay, and see if you can get that right knee to come over and drop just a little bit more to give you more power with your technique. 1. That's better. And 2. And 3. And this left hand can be kept up a little bit higher as we're striking with that. 1 and 2. And be sure to pull it back quickly. That's an important part of it. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay? And that's the basic elbow strike that we would use in our method here. In addition to our basic elbow strike here, we can use that elbow off the forward side by twisting like this. A lot of times you'll be in close to the opponent and you want to twist off the forward side. It's a lot like our hooking punch in that we want to, again, twist the hips, twist the shoulder, get the body weight in on it. So we're just going to strike across like that. This left hand comes up for protection. The right elbow comes up and you're just hitting across like that. The shoulder's up for protection. You want to quickly come back and cover the ribs. So on this forward elbow, we're just coming up and across like that. Up and across with it. Up and across, up and across. Now remember, there are different ways to throw the elbow. Ultimately, you have to find out what type of elbow technique works for you. It's important to be able to throw it correctly, but it's more important to be able to hit the person with it. So that's what we're doing, coming across and hitting. Now, one other variation that I want to go ahead and show you is sometimes referred to as a down elbow. We come more down on the opponent as opposed to straight across like this. So we come up and down on the elbow. We're just dropping our weight. And you can actually get more body weight on this since you're dropping down like that. Dropping down on the technique. Dropping down. So at this point, we can throw our regular elbow, our forward elbow, and our down elbow. And a 1, 2, and 3. And notice the position for the hips. And 1, we twist in. And 2, we torque back. And 3, we come down. And 1, and 2, and 3. And from fighting position, and 1, and 2, and 3. And from fighting position, 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Okay? 1. Full speed. Okay, the down elbow, slow speed. Full speed. The fundamentals of the elbow strikes are very similar to the jab, cross, hook that we'd already worked on. Ian, come on out here, and let's get you to try some of these techniques. And now, first of all, let's try that forward elbow strike. Now, on the forward elbow strike, you want to see your hip turn into it. You want to see the hand back in nice and relaxed. Ready? In 1, and 2, and 3. All right, now, notice that his hip's coming straight around, his hand's coming back to protect his ribs quickly, and also a little bit more hip into it and knee into it this time. Ready? 1, and 2, good, and 3. Terrific. Let's try the down elbow this time. On the down elbow, that'll be out in front of us, and you want to come across, and 1, that's it, a little bit too far away, and 2, and 3. Let's go ahead and turn this knee forward a little bit more and get that left hip into it a little bit more. Ready? And 1, that's it, and pull back quickly, and 2, that's it. Let's turn this around, and 3. All right, this time we're going to try some combinations. So we'll start out with the reverse elbow, the forward elbow, and the down elbow. Let's do that again nice and slow. We're going to start out with the reverse, and notice that as he does the reverse, just hold it out there. Okay, he's in just a terrific position to throw this forward elbow. So I'll put the focus pad up, and he'll hit, and now he's ready to come down with the reverse elbow. The down elbow. Here we go. Ready? And 1, 2, and 3. Let's try it again. Ready? And 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's try it again. Ready, and 1, 2, 3. All right, this time, Ian, let's try it real fast. So 1, 2, 3, just like that. Ready, and 1, 2, 3. Good. Let's try it again. Here we go. Ready, and 1, 2, 3. Good job. And that's how we train for these elbow strikes. In addition to the elbow techniques, the knees are terrific for in-close fighting. The knee techniques generally are just brought up. It's all you have to do on the knee. Typically in the structured arts, the classical art, the knee is brought up and then pulled back. But in our particular art, the kickboxing, if you'll take the knee up and then push the hips in, just like you were doing that front thrusting kick that we worked on in tape 1. Coming up and across, it's the same basic principle. You get the hip into it, and that's where your power is coming from. So the knee comes up, and then you're pointing it in, up and in like this. And notice the hands are being used to pull the opponent into you. Typically, if you can grab onto that neck or upper body or collar or something, so you can pull them in and drive that knee tight in against the opponent like that. So you're grabbing and you're pulling in and driving your knee up. Grabbing, pulling in and driving your knee up for that. And this is the reverse knee technique. Now, full speed. Let's go to the focus pads and try out these knees for real. As my opponent comes in, and Ian, I'm going to have you hold the focus pads this time. What I want to do, I'm typically not going to throw my knee at a distance like this, although that'll work sometimes. The problem would be if I throw it out that far, my opponent could easily block it or grab it. And so I typically want to be in close if I'm going to throw a knee attack. Now, if I happen to approach the opponent from this position, I'm just going to incorporate that switch step back, and then there's my knee strike. There's my knee strike. If I happen to be on the right lead and I want to throw a reverse knee, I'll just switch step and then drive the knee straight in, just like that. Driving the knee in. Now, I can also use the knee off the forward side. Once I have my opponent, I might be grabbing like this, or around the neck would be my best bet. Putting both hands together works. Putting hands like this. There are any number of different ways to do this. But I can use the knee off the front side, like this. Okay, like that. And you can see, you get a lot of control on your opponent. Once you have the hands in position like this, it's easy to control the opponent, to take them down, or to pull them in. Also, you can push them back and use your elbow strikes at this point, going straight back into the knee, like this. Now, one other variation of the knee is to bring it around much like a hooking kick, in which we bring the knee up and across like this. Up and across like this. Again, let's pull you right over here, and you can see, once you have the hands in position, it's easy to control. The knee comes up and across, just like that. Up and across, up and across. So, using our opponent with the focus pads on, we can actually control and move around and throw our knees around like this, or straight up, cross them over, straight up, forward, or back. Now, it's actually pretty rough on your opponent, on your partner, as you practice these techniques, but be sure and spend your time on the focus pads if you want to perfect your knee techniques. It's important to take your time with the focus pad training. Now, what we've demonstrated are just some of the fundamentals that you might pick up. Panther Productions, by the way, has a series of videotapes on the focus pad training by Manny Severio. I certainly recommend that. He's taken a lot of time to develop expertise and a lot of very intricate training methods for you. This time, let's look at the headbutt. Now, on the headbutt, we typically wouldn't get a heavy bag and practice it, and we certainly wouldn't do it on the focus pads. But in close, especially if we both have on headgear, we could actually train in some of these techniques. But I'm just going to demonstrate it. Ian, you come in for a second. At long range, the headbutt isn't going to work at all because I'll be in position where my opponent is going to hit me. But once I can move in and cover this, bridge this gap here, then I can control the person. Now, at this point, he's really out of the way for a headbutt. So I throw a knee or perhaps an elbow technique. If I happen to move in and he wasn't in so much of a karate stance, more of a straight stance, and I'm in position here, I can actually throw the headbutt. Now, I don't want to throw the headbutt when his head is forward like that, because what's going to happen, I'm going to hit the top of his head. That's going to hurt me. So I've got to get that head back out of the way. Once I get the head back, then I'm going to take the forehead here, or the top of my head. The karate people usually incorporate the forehead, the boxers, the top of the head, and just smash it right into the opponent. So if I'm going to use the headbutt, I want to get that head back so that I make sure that I'm hitting all this soft tissue in here, and I'm not going to do any damage to myself. And then bam, I'm going to have a very powerful technique. If I happen to be on the corner like this, I can actually take the side of my head and smash into this soft tissue here, and that too is going to be a very effective technique for me. So if I want to incorporate the headbutt, I want to use as my first principle to get his head back. Now I can do that by just taking my shoulder, as a typical boxer does, and knock the head back. Give me a left lead, would you? Okay, so if I were in a boxing type of stance, I'd easily take this bicep or shoulder here, knock that head back, and then pow, I'm ready to throw that headbutt right in like that. If the head is forward, then I'm not going to be in a good position to throw a headbutt. At this point, I'm going to throw a knee, for example. I'm going to move him around. I'm going to throw an elbow. But if I can get that head back, then I can throw the headbutt in. Get the head back, then I'll throw the headbutt in. Now again, the headbutt isn't something you need to spend a lot of time practicing, but it's very functional once you get the opponent into the trapping range. Certainly no discussion of HIA attacks would be complete without first looking at classical trapping routines, the Pak Sao, the Lob Sao, and such. Ian, come in for 1 second. Now, if I'm trying to hit my opponent, and that's what I'm going for here, and he doesn't block, I get in a straight attack. That's a simple direct attack. But if I try to hit him and he blocks it, now I have an obstruction up here that I have to clear. Our reference point is the arm being up like that. One way to approach that is to take my left hand in a slapping motion, a pak, and I slap it down. That clears the obstruction, so now I'm ready to hit my opponent. So that's what we call this HIA, the hand immobilization attack, using the Pak Sao. I'm going to move in and hit just like that. It's very important to have the footwork to go along with the actual strike. I have to be stepping in as I'm moving the arm to hit with. And let me show that to the camera a few times here. Ian, if you'll step back for a minute. From our on-guard position, we have the footwork moving in like this. At the same time that I'm stepping in, I'm taking my left palm and I'm pushing against the forearm, right into the elbow, and I want to try to push that right into the ribs. If I just hit, then my opponent's able to come up around and hit me. So I've got to make sure that I take that palm and I stick it right in, and that allows me to strike right to my opponent's face. So once again, the technique works like this. And we call this, by the way, dramatization. Remember on an earlier tape we talked about lecture demonstration as being a low level of learning, and a second level would be dramatization. Anyone that performs a kata is doing dramatization. This is in effect the kata, the dramatization of the HIA attack called Pak Sao. I step out 1 and hit 2. I step out 1 and hit 2. Now you can also incorporate focus pads for this, but it's really better to have a partner come out. Ian? Okay, so once again, I start to hit. Here's the obstruction. His arm's in the way. Now I could attempt to go in a different direction and hit him. That'd be one way to do it. But what I'm going to try to do is just clear that obstruction. I'm going to take my palm and push against his body, and now I'm free to strike him at that point. Once more, I start here. This is my reference point. Pak Sao, and hit with the backhand. Pak Sao in the backhand. And remember, make sure that the feet are moving in close for that. Now, once I have cleared that obstruction, I'm free to continue my strikes, to grab, to throw my knee, to stick the leg in like this, to turn the person around. I've established some control. So anytime you can get to that neck, there's your control factor. I can also use the fingertips striking in like that. It's a very fast and functional technique for HIA attack. Hand immobilization and then strike. Mobilize and then strike. Just like that. Okay. Now, in addition to the Pak Sao to strike, we might find that as we push against the person and we try that Pak Sao, we don't get anywhere. Too much energy, too much power. Okay, so one way to approach that, usually if the person is pushing that hard, really has a strong block out there and you can't pak sao, is to let that energy come into you called a lop sao, like that. And now you're in perfect position to hit your opponent. So again, I tried to blast in and hit, but I wasn't able to, and I felt so much energy there. It just felt like I was hitting a statue, that I took that energy and pulled it in, and as I do that, I'm able to hit. Now, sometimes you can use your thumb around and get a good pull. Other times you'll just cup your hand like this as you're ready to hit. And let me show that right in the camera. So for the lop sao technique, we're actually hitting and pulling down. You're going to kind of cup your hands like this. That's the technique that you want to use for the lop sao. We hit and pull, and then we're going to go punch. So from our fighting position, we'll pull, and then we're ready to follow through with a punch. So we'll pull and we can punch, and pull and punch, and pull and punch. All right, Ian, come back in. Let's look at that. So let's start with the reference point, the arms crossed here for the classical type of trapping. We just pulled down, and now we're wide open to hit with. Okay, so pull and hit, just like that. Pull and hit. Now you also have the force of his body and his energy. That's the reason you're pulling it, because he had too much energy and you couldn't stop it any other way. You're pulling him down, so you're taking that energy, and that is generating even more force as you're going into it. So this could be a very powerful technique for you. Lop sao down and hit. Lop sao down and hit. You can also put the pak sao, lop sao together. Here's the lop sao and hit, pak sao and hit. Lop sao hit, pak sao hit. Hit, hit, just like that. Pull and hit and pull and hit. Pull and hit, pull and hit, just like that. And that's what we call the lop sao. Now, let's say that we try for the lop sao, but here again, the energy isn't right. I pull. I can, if he pretty much stiffens up there on me, what I'm going to do is just bong in, take the elbow and twist around, just direct it out of the way. If he's pushing hard like this, push, it's not that difficult for me to move the arm either direction here. And I'm just deflecting it, in one way or the other. So as we're starting here, I'm just going to take that energy that I can't pak, I can't slap and move it out of the way, so I'm just going to take that energy that's coming at me and redirect it over out of the way. Once I do that, I can take my left hand, and that gives me a lop, a pulling motion, and boom, I've got my opponent, just like that. Okay, so I'm just going to take that arm and move it out of the way and hit. Take that hand and move it out of the way and strike. This is called a bong sao. Move the hand in and strike against my opponent. Move the hand in and strike against the opponent. Now this actually works even in boxing, where you'll take your elbow up and pull it out of the way against the opponent. To show you how to do that, Ian, if you'll step back for a minute, that way. As my opponent's coming at me, I'll have my reference point, the forearm. I just take my elbow and up. You want to try to maintain what we call sometimes the center line, okay? And twisting it over, and twisting it over. So you can actually rotate that hand in front of you like that, using that bong sao. So Ian, if you'll come back. So here I am at this point. I could lop sao and hit, I could pak sao and hit, or I could take that hand and turn it in and strike against my opponent once more. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is learn how to control that hand, and there are several ways to do that. But one method is the bong sao, which I twist it in and strike back against my opponent. Now if he were to throw a left lead, a left punch here, I still, if he's punching out, I can still take that bong sao and roll it over again, like that. Okay, so as I come in, I can move this one and hit, and as he punches, I'm just again using that elbow to redirect over. And in this case, I'm in a trapping position here so that I can counter and strike him. Okay, so once more, from this position, over and strike. As he punches a second time, I just redirect that elbow over out of the way, and boom, I've got him that easily. And that's what we call the bong sao in the classical trapping method. Now, sometimes the energy will be such that you won't have the opportunity to move in and bong sao, or maybe you don't want to move in on it. So you just use what we sometimes refer to as a running hand. The hand just goes over, You're again protecting your center line. This is important for that classical trapping because they're concerned about moving in and hitting straight in. As a boxer, we're also concerned about the hook. So center line is an important element, but it's not an end-all type of event there. So we're coming in and striking and then pulling down. If we wanted to do the jiao sao, we could come to what's called a jut sao, a little pull, and now we're in position to hit. But we're just running the hand out of the way. Just running the hand out of the way, and that's called a jiao sao. Let me do it for the camera. Ian, if you'll step over. We're in our on-guard position. The force comes in, and we just run inside of it, just like that. Now, sometimes you'll find your hand inside, and sometimes you'll find your hand outside. And that doesn't matter a whole lot. It just depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But as we're moving on the technique, we're just kind of coming up and over like that. Up and over like that. And Ian, if you'll come back. So we took that reference point and we moved inside of it like this. And now we're in position to trap and hit. Okay, so just to review, basically I could use the slap called the pak sao, and hit. If there's too much power there and I can't do anything with my pak, I may choose to pull down, lob sao, and hit. And I may also take that same energy, instead of pulling it down, which puts me to the outside, I may direct it to the inside, which I'm using what we call the bong sao, the elbow technique. And still yet, without committing that inside, I can stay back and just run the hand to the inside, which now puts me in position to hit or to trap and hit. So I'm just taking that hand back. Now, as the person is punching, once you get that jiao sao, you're really in position to capture and take the hand out to focus with. And you can see why the classical HIA attacks are very functional for self-defense. In addition to the classical Wing Chun style of trapping, we also have trapping from other martial arts. Now, we don't typically think of karate as being a trapping type of art, but in fact there are several styles, such as Okinawan Goju, that spend considerable time using trapping in, trapping out methods. And in fact, they call that a redirection technique. And what we're doing is moving the hand and then following through. Ian, can I use you for this? As you punch out, I'm just going to go 1-2 like that. And see, that puts me right into position. I've, in effect, immobilized that arm by redirecting it out. And now I'm in position to follow through with the technique. Ian? We use that by coming over and back. In case you happen to watch The Karate Kid, this is called a wax on, wax off. And, in fact, a lot of karate techniques that use the middle block emphasize that type of routine here. So as the punch comes in, we take a little motion here, and then the right hand comes under, not unlike what we would call in classical martial arts an X block. A lot of people feel like you have to put your arms together to compose an X block, but that's only part of the actual technique. The technique is performed here. See? So if you were to take a picture of that, it would look like I was performing an X block. In fact, I'm only doing half of the actual rotation for the redirection. A common misunderstanding about typical karate techniques. 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2, and 1 and 2. So as the punch comes in, using this type of trapping technique, I'm just going to step and redirect over like that. Ian? So once again, as he punches, I go 1-2, and then I'm in position to hit him. And now, it doesn't matter as you punch slow. This left hand, I want you to punch here and hold your hand as tight as you can. Okay? Just even a little touch like that can move his hand. So if I can move his hand 3 inches on the first one and 3 inches on the second one, well, I've missed my head. See, and that's all I'm trying to do there. As he's punching, I'm trying to get the hand out of the way. It's advantageous to get those shoulders up and maybe prepare to move the body down low or out of the way, or you can even step back to make sure that you don't get hit in the process. As he's punching, I'll go 1. Now, whether my hand goes in this position or turns over really doesn't matter. It might be that I'll pull my hand down and kind of hang on to him. Okay? This also a traditional karate type of technique in which we pull and down like that. Okay? Now, sometimes my targets will be, of course, the head, or sometimes my targets will be right into the arm, like that. Or sometimes, using this technique, I may just continue to pull down and follow through with a arm wrenching type of technique. But basically, I want to make sure that I understand that as he's punching, I can redirect over like that. And in order to make it useful, I have to be stepping in. Now, trapping and redirecting is to buy you time and distance. As he's punching, if I stand here, I've blocked the technique temporarily, but what's to stop him from pulling that hand back and hitting me a second time, which he can do. So if I'm going to take the time to try to trap and intercept, I want to buy myself time and distance. Here's the time. Okay, I now have the second or two, and I want to move in. That's the distance that I want. Once I'm in, then I can use any of the techniques that I want to. I can strike to the leg, I can strike to the groin, I can pull the person down, I can capture the head like that, I can strike, any of the techniques I want from whatever art. Once you have incorporated this interception, now is the time that you can take all the exclusive techniques from your art, because you're in a safe position. There's not a whole lot he can do from here. He can't really tackle you, can't really hit you. He's in an awkward position. And in fact, if we were ready to start the fight from this position, he's actually not in a very good position to be in. So by using this alternate form of trapping, this hand immobilization attack, which comes largely from the karate arts, I take the punch in, redirect it over, and now I'm in position for whatever I'd like to use there. And we call that an interception to redirection technique. In Jeet Kune Do, what we stress is any technique that works. It doesn't make any difference where it came from, because once you get into Jeet Kune Do, you chip it away, you redesign it until it fits your needs. In this case, we're again looking at that karate type of technique, but we're coming in. If you'll punch out, I'll come in, which puts me on the inside line to strike my opponent. Let me show you that to the camera here. Once again, we'd use that reference of wax on. Well, this is the wax off technique, if you will. As the punch comes in, we take the first hand and place it in. Here's our X block position again, redirecting and striking. As he punches in, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 3, and 1, 2, and 3. Now, I bring up this point about the X block because I suppose there's somewhat of an elitism in many martial arts systems. It's easy to put down the other technique, the other art from the other system, when in fact every system has something of value. Some people would look at an X block in a karate magazine and say, oh, that means nothing. But once you understand how that technique actually works, then you can figure out the importance of the technique. Let's not be too close-minded. Let's not be too quick to judge. But as we look at these techniques, you'll see how this otherwise traditional martial art, classical martial art, once it comes into the Jeet Kune Do matrix and gets turned around into necessity where we're doing the actual contact sparring, you can see how it's going to be very functional. Ian, come on in here. As he punches, I take the first technique and then move in and hit. So if I want to move into him, I just play it straight in like that. If I had an opponent with his hands up in a boxing type of position, I could easily move straight in like that for the technique. Okay? And what I'm doing here is going 1, up and under, and 2. As it comes in, I'm going 1, there's my X block right there, up and under, and 2. And 1, up and under, and 2. And I'm striking right here on the temple. Okay, so I would expect, if I threw a lot of power in that with body weight, I expect a knockout from that technique. So I move in, 1, 2, and hit. And 1, 2, and hit. Now, I can put those techniques together. Now watch this. If he punches out with the right hand, and I go 1, 2, punch out again, and I can redirect it. Now what happens if he were to punch out with the left hand? 1, 2, again, I'm ready to hit. So I just took that right punch and went inside. The left punch, I went inside, and now I'm in a terrific position to overpower my opponent. Sometimes when you're training, you may want to work on that. 1, 2, it's the right hand over, left hand under, redirect. Left hand makes contact, right hand under, redirect. Okay, to get both of those techniques down, as the person is punching in, right hand, left hand under, redirect, left hand, right hand under, redirect. Right hand, now it doesn't matter whether your hand is like this or whatever. Right hand, left hand under, redirect. Now you're ready to strike. Left hand intercepts, right hand comes under, traps, that is temporarily immobilization, that's what we call trapping, and then strike. In. As he punches with the right, I'll go 1, 2, strike. As he punches with the left, I take my left hand 1, 2, and strike. So as he's punching, 1, as he's punching, 1 and 2, like that. So as he punches with the right, 1, punches with the left, 2, punches with the right, punches with the left, punches with the right, punches with the left, right and left. Okay? And you can see how this method of exercise that we call otherwise a classical martial art is very functional for our trapping range. Anytime you're looking at fighting arts that deal largely with the hand techniques, you're looking at the potential for trapping. If you ever watch a boxing match, you'll see how efficient the boxers are in controlling the opponent's hands, not only in terms of blocking and hitting, but trapping and tying up those hands. Anytime you're tying up a hand, you're in effect hand immobilization attack. Immobilization is to tie up, to trap, to destruct. Ian, if you'll come in for a second. Give me a left lead. Okay, now typically this left hook that we're used to throwing can be used to immobilize. So see what I'm doing? I'm just reaching out and controlling that hand. The right hand, the right cross, again, can be used to pull down. So in effect, I can just really control my opponent from my boxing position. The boxing teaches us the footwork, the mobility to move in. It was the mobility that Bruce Lee was interested in when he looked at boxing. Boxing gives us that ability to move in. If you can move, you have that motion available to you, you can control the distance. If you practice an art that has blocking or trapping, but it's in a stationary position, I'm not sure that you've accomplished a lot. You need to take that next step and get it into a mobile stance. But once you have the mobility, you'll see that this temporary immobilization sets up any number of techniques. I can move in and hit my opponent. I want to constantly be denying access to my targets. Okay? In Wing Chun, we refer to the center line. In boxing, we're not so much concerned with the center line because the center line is actually moving. Let me show you what I mean by that. Here's my center line in the Wing Chun type of method. In terms of boxing, I'm continually moving that center line. Okay, see how the shoulders are dipping, see how the head will be moving. So I'm actually moving at all times the direction. Hence, you don't use that term center line in a typical boxing position because I've changed center line. I've moved it out of the way. I don't have to be concerned about protecting it because I'm moving it out of the way. That's my defense for it. I don't have to use my hands to stop techniques because I'm moving my center line out of position so my opponent can't get to it. Come back in here just a second. So once again, we can take any of our typical boxing type of techniques. Even an uppercut can be used to pull his hands up and hit. Especially if I'm in tight like this, I might take my left hand and bump his elbow up and then hit through. And then I'm in position to control my opponent using this routine. Now, I have referred to this inside boxing and trapping as trap boxing. I think that's an appropriate name for it. Because the fact is that a lot of the trapping, the classical trapping, you can't use as effectively in close with your opponent moving. Because if you have a person blasting in at you, perhaps the best defense is to move, to not be there, either getting too low or pivoting out of the position here. So as we're moving in, I'm using these boxing techniques to trap and hit, trap and hit. As he throws a jab, I can also use my hands to redirect and follow through to hit my opponent with that. Now, one other element of the trap boxing that should be brought out is typically in boxing position. If I see my opponent coming in, I'll trap a hand, and then I'll go for the neck if I'm trying to close in and bridge the gap. If I move in and bridge the gap and move in on the opponent, then if he continues to throw that right arm, then I'm going to try to tie that up. If I tie it up, then he doesn't have a whole lot of other options other than to try to use this hand. If he tries to use this hand and I pull it, I can now get in position to where I've trapped both hands. At this point, I'm in a pretty good position here to continue hitting until my opponent submits. Okay? I've trapped up both hands. Let me show that from a slightly different angle. I'll try it from this angle. As he hits, I move in and control. I'll control this hand, and then my left hand goes up under to hit with. Okay? You can see how my left hand is tied up in this position. Now, once I have this, the more he struggles, the more I'm able to control his fighting potential there. But basically, I'm thinking in terms of immobilizing him so that I can make him submit, or he may just drop out of it altogether. In this situation, I'll take that forward hand and control, but let's say that he continues to work with this hand, throwing a high punch at me. If I move in and I control and tie up, I can again continue to control. Now, I'm going to control by moving my body, which gives him the only option of throwing that arm. When he throws that arm, I've got it controlled as well. Now, if you can see, both my hands are kind of tied like this. The more he works, the more tired he gets. I'm just kind of resting on it. I'll take one of my hands, typically my left hand, and I'll push it up and control. And now that I have both hands controlled once more, I'm in a good position to continue hitting my opponent until he submits. Okay, until he submits, and then that's how we use what we call trap boxing. That's actually taking the boxing techniques to another step by incorporating the trapping. Now, the reason the boxers didn't pick up on that is because it's illegal to trap the hands in a boxing match. If you trap the hands, then the headbutt comes into play, and all these things are illegal in boxing, but it's exactly what we want here in this HIA position, hand immobilization, trapping distance. We want to be in close, want to be in position to use that headbutt, elbow, and knee strike techniques. In this next section that I'm going to go through, I'm going to show you some prearranged trapping routines. In the science of physical activity, we have a principle referred to as specificity of exercise. What we're referring to here is that if we have a technique that we want to make work, we have to be as exact as possible with it. In other words, some skills are really too complicated to actually pull off. Whenever we're doing prearranged sparring, it's very easy to put in very intricate skills that are going to be difficult to actually make work. For that reason, some of us involved in kickboxing prefer a simple punch, a simple kick. You know it's going to work for you. Nevertheless, I'm going to demonstrate for you some of the more intricate and advanced forms of trapping in what is called prearranged sparring. Ian, if you'll come out. Here we have a person punching out, and what I'm going to do is an interception, and then by moving in, I'm going to take the person down. Now, you can actually make this work if you're in close enough to your opponent and you use this clothesline technique. This has, again, from our Jeet Kune Do matrix, some of the elements of Aikido, some of the elements of a karate interception, some of the elements of a jiu-jitsu or judo takedown. But once it becomes Jeet Kune Do, it's no way is way. In other words, it may appear to be one style or another, but in Jeet Kune Do, we're not really concerned about the style or the technique. What is important in Jeet Kune Do is what works. As we perform this technique, as he punches, I'll come inside and then hit and take down like that. Now, I'm going to show you how it works, because it may be that from practicing this prearranged, this unrealistic type of approach to self-defense, you'll pick out certain elements that you'll get used to, and once you have those down, then when you get out in the actual sparring, perhaps you can see how to apply. But without the sparring, without the full contact, the fighting measure, it's going to be very difficult to pick up all these advanced techniques, these sophisticated methods, and then decide this is self-defense. This is a training method for self-defense. This is a step in the right direction, but don't simply take this and decide this is what's going to be functional. As he punches out, I stepped in. Remember, our trapping, our interception was to buy time and distance. Once I stepped in with his energy coming in, I'm then going to take my forearm up and my right leg across. As my forearm comes up, it's going to head right to the head, or in training, we'll go to the upper body and chest and take the person down to the floor. I don't need to kick up because this force is going to hit him. Turn around right here, Ian. Okay, as he comes in, I redirect. Now watch my right hand. If you'll take this hand down just for a second. As I step in, I'm hitting like that. Can you feel that? Now imagine if I'm throwing that up to his head. That's a pretty rough weapon to be hit with. So as he's coming in, I'm moving out of the way and then quickly throwing him over. It's important that I gain control here. If I have him in and I can't get his head to go back here, I can't throw him down. I can't get him down to the floor. It just won't work for me. However, if I have him in and I make that contact and hit, now he's back out of position, so it's going to be easy for me to sweep and take him down to the floor. Okay, Ian, if you'll step right over here for a second, I'll show it in the camera. Okay, in this case, as the punch comes in, I intercept. My right hand redirects. I'll take a short step with my left. My right foot will come around. As I hit, I sweep at the same time. Okay? So as he strikes in, I'll go 1, 2, and then strike and take him down. Once more, as he comes in, 1, 2, step and swing and take down. As the punch is coming in, it's 1, 2, and 3, and down. As the punch is coming in, 1, 2, and down like that. A little bit faster this time as he's coming in. 1, 2, and 3, taking him down. And then in slow speed, and 1, and 2, and step, and take down. Now my left hand is in position to counter. My right hand is in position to counter. As I'm stepping in, remember I want to buy that time, so I'm stepping in. To do that, it makes no difference whether my hand is right or left, up or down, but I'm going to take him over like that. In, back in. Okay, so as the punch comes in, I go 1, 2. That takes me into position. Now I want to make sure that I'm in fairly close so that he doesn't have something he can hit me with, either a knee or a kick. I want to get right up on top of him. As my right leg comes around, my hand comes in like this, and at this point I could actually pull him in and control him from here. Okay, can you feel that? I mean, that's a good, strong technique for you. Tap. All right. As he comes in, I move up and I hit, but instead of holding on, I'm just going to take that force and knock him down to the floor like that. Okay? And to add to it, now we're on a concrete surface here, so I'm not going to expect you to go down. So I'm not going to control for that. But as you punch in, I'll move up like this, and if I want to, I'll take this right leg, and I'm not going to use this part at all. The right leg, the back of my thigh, hitting, will drive him down to the floor. So once again, I use this trapping technique. This interception is my entry. And now, once I'm in, it's a combination of the hit and the strike, which is going to take my opponent down to the floor like that. So putting it all together, I enter, and then boom, hit him down to the floor. Once I get him down to the floor, well, the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to use. As he punches, I'm stepping in or redirecting. The left hand is coming back just for protection, really, just to hold on. If he had long hair, I could pull it. If he has a shirt, I can pull it. Again, at any point, I may want to pull that hand in and hit here to the carotid artery, like that. I may want to take this hand and pull back like that to wrench his neck. Once I have him off, all I have to do is drop down and it'll go right to the floor for me. If he's struggling and I'm holding him, I can still hit like that. And I'm still in position to take my opponent down to the floor from here. Okay, good enough. A common disadvantage of these prearranged self-defense routines is that it's very hard to make them work in reality. The advantage to it is that you can self-discover different techniques that you would actually use. For example, we just had Ian come in. And I moved to this line. Now, let's say that my opponent was actually too strong, and once I moved in, I went for this hand technique, but it didn't work. Too strong for that. Okay, so what I could do is reverse my hand out and now take him down from this position. Let's try that. So as he comes in, I'm going to come across and try to hit. But when that one doesn't work, I'll switch right back and then take him down. Now, I've discovered, by accident really, that there's a little jiu-jitsu little arm bend here. Can you feel that? Okay. I can take my left hand around and capture the neck entirely here for a little wrenching type of technique. Can you feel that? Okay. I could take my leg here and kick back and knock him down to the floor, or kick up under the groin like that. Okay. I can take my foot and stomp. I can take my hand and twist like that. All of these from this self-defense routine. Obviously, pulling back and dropping him to the floor would be one of the best things I could do. Let's see how that works. As my opponent, let me show this just in the screen first of all. As my opponent is coming in, I moved the technique 1 and 2 and 3. Now, at this point, I've reversed my step, that switch step that we showed earlier, and came right over the top like that. Okay, once again, as my opponent comes in, 1, 2, I step forward and take him down. Once that doesn't work, I'll step back and reverse step like that. As my opponent comes in, I'll go 1, 2, attempt to take down. As it doesn't work, I'll step back and go through it. You can see how, over a period of years, a technique that was realistic, such as this, in which I tried to make the technique work, could be turned into a kata or dance, which the proponents were actually over-dramatizing the techniques, so that what appeared to be a self-defense technique was now very flowery routine of techniques that don't actually apply. But in reality, we want to be simple and direct. Instead of making that wide turn across, we'll make it very simple, turn in and hit, reverse, and take the person down. In, if you'll come back in. Okay, so as he punches, I enter and try that technique. If that one doesn't work, and it's hard to believe that it wouldn't work because that hand is smashing him into the face. If this one doesn't work, I'll step back. Now, this forearm can be blasted right into the face. That was a little hard right there, wasn't it? And it doesn't take much to get a cutting action there. Okay? Now, I probably would want to just take his space by pulling him over and taking him down to the floor. That'd be my first option. So as he comes in, I'll go through and then take him down to the floor from that. It might be that as he comes in and I try this technique, I'll decide, here's what I want to do. I might want to pull back and get some little pain right there. But in some cases, his arm might be bent, and I can't make that technique work. That's the disadvantage of prearranged sparring, is that you don't know that you're going to get the exact technique. So I have to be ready to place that elbow in to pull back. Okay? So as he comes in, I drop it out of the way. I pull back. I'm hitting to take his head back out of the way and taking him down. Now, dropping him is the best option that you have. As he punches in, I'll redirect it. But this time, instead of dropping him, I'm going to take this left hand and go around his head. And already he's positioning because that's not a very pleasant motion. I'll place my knee in. I've got a nice little stretching technique here, which is good for pain, if that's what you're after. So as he's moving in, I'm trying to hit this technique, but it didn't work. So I simply stepped around and finished the last technique. As he's coming in, I tried to get this technique, but that didn't work. So I just took him down like that. All right. Just as we took the entries from the outside, we can also do the entries from the inside. Let me show you how that would look. In. As he throws out the punch, I'll go inside and hit. And now I'm just going to take that leg and sweep it out from under like that. Just to show you how that looks in the kata or the form style. As he moves in at me, I go inside, 1, 2, and now the right hand goes to strike with or to hit or to pull, and then the right leg sweeps like that. And once again, if we want to dress it up a little bit, we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. And as he steps, I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. As he steps, I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. But of course, in Jeet Kune Do, we would take out those flowery techniques and go just with the simple and direct technique. In. As he comes in, I go 1, 2, and hit. Now, this technique, actually, I'm going to take that leg and kick. But as I kick, I'm going to take the foot and twist it back so that I get this takedown type of technique. So it's a combination of hooking the leg in and pushing back and down like that. Okay, so as he punches, I come in 1, 2, and hit. Now that alone is enough to stop the person, because as I'm coming in to hit, I'm hitting and I've got my whole body coiled up here, ready to spring into him. Okay, and it's my forearm. I don't have to hit with any part of my hand. Anything that I hit here is going to give a lot of power. So I move in, I take this energy out and hit him, and now just to add to it, I'll skip up just a little, and I'll take this leg and I'll take and sweep him down to the floor. As he punches, I come inside and hit and sweep him down to the floor like that. As he punches, I come inside and hit, and now sweep him down to the floor, making this circle like that. Once more, as he punches, I come in and hit and sweep him down to the floor like that. Now, once we've already entered from one position, if that doesn't work, we want to be in position to where we can continue through on this. So as the punch comes in, I'm going to enter and strike, and then come back and strike a second time. Ian? As the punch comes in, I enter and strike, and let's say that I didn't get the sweep that I wanted. It didn't work. So I'll just come back a second time and then hit. Now look what I have here. This forearm and elbow can be used to take the person down. But ultimately, if you'll zoom in on this leg right here, boom, there's my technique. That's what I was looking for right there. So as he comes in, I go 1, 2, 3, hit, and then back, and I'm taking his space. Okay? As he comes in, I go 1, 2, and hit. I'm taking my left knee and I'm stepping way up. I'm in effect taking his space, taking his position. I tried that hit, but it didn't work, so I step over top. Now this is what makes the technique work for me. By stepping over, I'm taking him off balance. I'm not simply trying to use my leg for this. I hit, I tried to sweep. I'm not just trying to hit him with the leg or step in and make that arm work. What I'm doing is taking my entire body, my whole body stepping in there to hit him. Okay, once again, he comes in, I hit, I attempt to sweep, didn't work. I take my whole body in and take him down. So as he comes in, I go 1, 2, and hit, didn't work. Take the whole body and follow through. Now, as I go in for the technique, I have any number of options available to me. I might just stop here with a strike. Okay? I may take the fingers and scrape out to the eyes, or hit back and strike again. Just continue striking if I want to. Okay? Once I have gained control over my opponent's position, I'm really in an advantageous position to where whatever I want. This is not a fighting position for him. He's in a position of inferiority. I'm in a position of superiority. I can do whatever I want to and probably get away with it. HIA, hand immobilization attack, or trapping, what we call sometimes trap boxing, is an important element of the JKD style of fighting. Now, at home, as you're watching the tape, be sure and practice and run through each of the drills, back and forth, taking the time to make them simple and direct. Make the drills to where something that you can actually use. Then get a partner. Have the partner come in very slow and easy the first few times, and then have them blast the attack in. But ultimately, you have to go to the third level, which is the hands-on techniques. You have to put on the gloves, have to put on the headgear and the mouthpiece, get warmed up, and go full contact. In the next tape, we're going to begin our introduction to full contact sparring in the Jun Fan style.